Typically speaking, explosions aren't really a good thing. After all, whether they are caused by a natural disaster, technical error, or even a nuclear blast, they usually leave significant destruction in their wake. Yet, despite their power, there are still many explosions that most people know little to nothing about. So today, we're going to be counting them down on this list of the top 10 most energetic explosions to ever rock the planet. But before we do, don't forget to like, subscribe, and smash that notifications button so that you never miss out on another Variety Top video. Number 10, the Halifax Explosion. Generally speaking, Halifax, which is located on the east coast of Canada, would be considered to be a relatively quiet port city. However, in 1917, Halifax was anything but after the French S.S. Mont-Blanc and Norwegian S.S.Imo collided into each other. Now, this normally shouldn't have been too big of a problem. However, it quickly became one because the SS Mont-Blanc was packed to the rim with explosives. Thus, when the SS Mont-Blanc caught on fire, thanks to the collision, it didn't take long for the highly combustible benzol barrels on board to explode, leading to a blast that was equivalent to that of 2.9 kilotons of TNT. To make matters worse, a shock wave from the blast then went on to completely flatten nearly every building within 800 meters of the explosion, and not long after, a massive tsunami battered the area's coasts, leading to a total of 2,000 people being killed and a further 9,000 people being injured. It was easily one of the worst disasters in Canadian history. Number 9, the Battle of Messines. Most would agree that the battlefield is a pretty dangerous place, but if you were a German soldier, the Battle of Messines, which occurred during World War I, was certainly not somewhere that you'd want to be. That's because on June 7th of 1917, the British set off a series of mines containing a total of 455 tons of ammonia-based explosives right underneath the German lines. Thus, when they were detonated, the explosion was so large that it killed about 10,000 German soldiers almost immediately, with the noise being so loud that the sound traveled all the way from its location in Belgium to the cities of London and Dublin, both of which are located hundreds of kilometers away. As a result, this explosion has the distinction of having killed more people than any other non-nuclear man-made explosion in history. Number 8, the Beirut Explosion. Although this is still a developing story, the Beirut Explosion that occurred on August the 4th of 2020 is certainly one of the scarier explosions that have occurred in the past decade. After all, it is estimated that 220 people have died due to the incident, with a further 7,000 having been injured, a further 300,000 having lost their homes, and a massive bill of $10 to $15 billion in damage having been dealt. Now, while the actual cause of the explosion is still unclear, it seems that it was fueled by a warehouse that had been storing about 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate for the past 6 years with practically no safety regulations in place. As a result, much of Beirut has now been completely leveled, and the city is in desperate need of funds if it is to be repaired. However, considering that the region was in a severe economic crisis before the explosion even occurred, it may be many years until Beirut is restored to its former self. Number 7, Chernobyl. While nuclear reactors are generally a lot safer than you might imagine, like anything, they have the potential to malfunction, and unfortunately, when they do, the results can be catastrophic. Such was the case when, on April 26th of 1986, the number 4 reactor in the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, which was located near the city of Pripyat in Ukraine, completely melted down. Now, the factors that led to the explosion began, rather ironically, during a safety test of the reactor. And while these safety tests had been conducted before, things took an unexpected turn for the worse when the power almost completely shut down within the plant. Yet, rather than stop the test, the scientists had the reactor's electricity restored to a partial level and went ahead with it. However, the reactor's unstable conditions and its inherent design flaws ultimately resulted in a massive steam explosion, with this then causing a fire that released extremely high amounts of nuclear radiation into the atmosphere, leading to the creation of a 30-kilometer exclusion zone around the explosion's area. The blast ultimately directly or indirectly led to the deaths of between 9,000 and 16,000 people in the ensuing decades, with the radiation leading to widespread rates of cancer among people located not just in the general area, but across large swaths of the USSR and Western Europe. Number 6. The Tunguska event. While most of the explosions on this list are relatively well understood, the Tunguska event stands apart for being almost a complete mystery. That's because despite it having a force that was equivalent to between 3 and 30 megatons of TNT, and despite it knocking down about 80 million trees, no one really knows what caused the explosion. Now, the most scientifically accepted answer is that it was caused by the airburst of a stony meteorite about 100 meters in size. However, because there was no impact crater, the explosion likely occurred at an altitude of between 5 and 10 kilometers. Yet, due to both the isolated location of the blast in Russia's Siberia region and the fact that it happened all the way back in June of 1908, there were very few eyewitnesses and very few technical instruments at the time to detect and record it. As such, we may never really know what caused the Tunguska event. Number 5. The Krakatoa eruption. As you could probably imagine, volcanoes provide explosions that not only release lava, but copious amounts of dust, debris, and toxic gases, and their strength often leads to earthquakes and tsunamis in their wake. Yet, even by volcanic standards, the eruption of the Indonesian volcano of Krakatoa in August of 1883 puts most other eruptions to shame. That's because it had a force equivalent to that of 200 megatons of TNT, and directly led to the deaths of over 36,000 people. Consisting of 4 massive explosions, they were so loud that they were heard 3,110 kilometers away in Perth, Australia, and so strong that the shock waves circled the planet at least 7 times. It also resulted in a massive tsunami, with its 37-meter-tall waves destroying at least 165 coastal villages. Yet, worst of all, the 45 cubic kilometers of debris that it emitted blocked out much of the Earth's sunlight, causing global temperatures to fall by as much as 1.2 degrees Celsius over the next 5 years, leading to the complete failure of harvests worldwide and resulting in widespread famines as well. It thus goes without saying that the explosion had far-reaching effects that went well beyond its initial blast zone. Number 4. Castle Bravo. While the Cold War may have been a pretty icy standoff between both the United States and the USSR, it certainly led to some pretty hot explosions. Yet easily one of the worst of them all was the testing of Castle Bravo, which was a massive nuclear bomb that was not only the largest ever tested by the United States, but also the country's first lithium deuteride-fueled thermonuclear weapon, being dropped at Bikini Atoll on the Marshall Islands on March 1st of 1954. it ended up coming in with a force equivalent to 15 megatons of TNT, which was 2.5 times greater than the predicted 6 megatons that it was supposed to have dealt, thanks to unforeseen additional reactions involving lithium-7. As a result, many areas east of Bikini Atoll were heavily affected by the nuclear fallout, and to this day, residents of the Marshall Islands still show much higher rates of various cancers than those on the American mainland. Number 3. The Sarbama. While most would agree that the United States was the ultimate victor of the Cold War, one area in which they were bested in was nuclear bomb testing. That's because on October 30th of 1961, the USSR tested the Sarbama in the northern Russian island of Severny. Now, its force was equivalent to a massive 50 megatons of TNT, making it more than 3 times stronger than the Castle Bravo bomb. And while the residual effects of the bomb are relatively unknown due to the Soviet Union's secrecy at the time, what we do know is that it was the single most physically powerful device ever deployed on Earth, and likely caused massive nuclear fallout in the area. As such, we just hope that such a dangerous bomb is never deployed ever again. Number 2. The Mount Tambora eruption. While Krakatoa may have been pretty brutal, we think it's safe to say that the Mount Tambora eruption that occurred on April 10th of 1815 was exponentially worse. The only eruption to ever record a rating of 7 out of 8 on the Volcanic Explosivity Index in the modern age, it let out so much lava at its peak that its per second flow volume was about 178 times that of Niagara Falls. To make matters worse, the volcanic ash it emitted into the sky and large tsunamis it caused unfortunately claimed the lives of about 100,000 people in the immediate area. And due to the ash it spewed out, it caused global temperatures to drop by about 0.4 to 0.7 degrees Celsius until about 1819. In fact, the immediate aftermath was so severe that 1816 was known as the year without a summer, and the cold temperatures and failed harvests worldwide that were caused because of this year without a summer indirectly led to the deaths of about 90,000 people. Number 1. The Yellowstone eruption. Although there were no humans around to witness it, the explosions given off by the Yellowstone National Park supervolcano in the past few million years have been nothing short of catastrophic, with said explosions having occurred 2.1 million, 1.4 million, and 664,000 years ago respectively. Each led to both mass extinctions and large temperature changes around the world. Now, to put the Yellowstone supervolcano's destructiveness into perspective, if it were to erupt in a similar fashion as it did in its last eruption 664,000 years ago, scientists estimate that it would throw out about 1,000 cubic kilometers of ash into the atmosphere. In other words, enough to bury Texas 5 times over. However, although such a prospect is certainly a little scary, you can rest assured that scientists don't envision the volcano erupting anytime soon. That's all we have for you today, everyone, and thank you all for watching. Let us know in the comments down below which explosion you thought was the most destructive. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and smash that notifications button so that you never miss out on another Variety Top video. Until next time.